myself now. Hi, everyone. I'm Pia Catton, Director of Membership at ABT. I'm so glad to have all of our members here with us today. Welcome. We have a very special treat for all of you. We have Artistic Director Susan Jaffe here with us to talk about our fall season, which is coming up, as you all know, October 15th to November 1st. And she will be speaking with ABT's Associate Artistic Director, Clinton Luckett. And I'm just going to turn it over to you all right away. So welcome and thank you so much for doing this, you two.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here. Hello, everyone. Great to see you for our first ballet banter of the 25-26 season. Of course, as you know, this year we are celebrating the company's 85th anniversary. And Susan, it's the first anniversary that we're celebrating under your leadership. So as you have gone about programming the season for the fall, what did you want to do to highlight the company's 85th anniversary?
Thank you. And it's really wonderful to see everyone. So thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, I really wanted the 85th anniversary fall season to sort of encompass the full breadth of what ABT has done. And so one of the things that's very important about ABT is the choreographers that came through ABT and that did many works for ABT, like Agnes DeMille, like Anthony Tudor. They really became a staple of ABT's creative voice in the early days. And also when ABT sort of became important on the world stage, when they brought Les Sylphides in 1940, and then it was restaged in 41 by Dmitri Romanov, who was directly from the Ballet Russe and worked with Fokine. And so this really put ABT more on the world stage as far as legitimacy of the kinds of serious works that were going on in Europe and with the Ballet Russe. So we sort of nod to the past with the Dmitri Romanov version of 1941, Les Sylphides, to Agnes DeMille's Rodeo, Anthony Tudor's gala performance. I wanted a little more humor on the stage this year because ballet can be so serious. And then, you know, somebody who had tremendous influence on ABT was Twyla Tharp. And Twyla created many, many ballets. Actually, I can't even find the exact number, how many ballets. It was over 16 works for ABT, and which many of which I danced personally with her. And she really reshaped or introduced a more athletic, quicker kind of movement for American dancers. And she has a sharp, witty way of moving, and it really changed the face of ABT, just like Agnes did too with her Americana, bringing, nobody ever thought that you could actually bring Americana to serious ballet. And of course, Agnes proved everyone wrong and then went on the following year to do Oklahoma on Broadway. And so Twyla changed the face of ABT by bringing her movement quality, which was jazz and modern and social dance and all kinds of mixture into her work, and then put the point shoe in her work. So it really changed a lot about how ABT moved. So, and on top of that, it's her 60th anniversary as the big giant that she is, a female and truly innovative voice in the ballet world. So I just thought it was a wonderful way to honor her by giving her an entire evening, an entire program. So that And then going into ABT's more sort of current, which is represented by Serenade After Plato's Symposium by Alexei Ratmansky, Neo by Alexei Ratmansky. King Over the Shades represents our classicism. Sleeping Beauty represents our classicism, because for me, ABT is the standard bearer of traditional classical ballet and, of course, dramatic ballet in the country. So sort of really leaning into our classicism with Shades and the Sleeping Beauty. And then a new work by a highly exciting choreographer, Giuliano Nunes. He likes to be called Nunes and drop the Giuliano. He's from Brazil. I saw his work online. He was doing works for the Royal Ballet, for Paris Opera, Birmingham Royal, many different companies. And I thought his work was highly original, really difficult, and absolutely beautiful. And so he's really representing our future. So ballet theater was always focused on representing classical dramatic works, romantic works, as the standard bearer in the country, because these works come from Europe. And so ballet companies like the Royal Ballet, the Mariinsky, the Paris Opera, all of those companies are doing the works, the full-length ballets that we do. Not to be confused with Balanchine, which is neoclassical. ABT represents classicism, and Balanchine is the neoclassical, which is also more plotless than we are. So we've always had that sort of mix of classicism, dramatic works, the psychological works of Anthony Tudor, who really made sure that dancers, when he was working with them, were as honest as possible. The Americana of Agnes DeMille, the athleticism of Twyla Tharp, and the new works of Nunes. So it's really that huge mix that ballet theater has always been.
Well, it's certainly an incredible range of work that speaks to our history and our present. Shall we dig a little bit deeper into just a few of the pieces? Of course, the very first ballet on the very first program that ballet theater presented in January of 1940 was Les Sylphides. Lucia Chase was herself a dancer, and she appeared in Les Sylphides herself. It was a coup for her to get Michel Fokine, the great choreographer from the Ballet Russe, to come and stage this work. It was on almost every program for many, many years. It was a staple of the company. But in the past few decades, it's become less and less prominent. We only do it occasionally. It's been quite a long time since we've done it before. We're diving back into it now with a new generation of dancers who mostly have never danced it. How is it evolving this time round?
Yes, so I received from Susan Jones, who's normally staging Les Sylphides, but she's too busy with all of the Twyla Tharp work. So I'm staging this for the first time, and this is the 1941 staging of Dmitri Romanov, and the dancers are in leotards, and it's very, very fuzzy. But I'm taking the information from that, as well as some of our previous performances in the past, where it was more aligned with Les Sylphides of Romanov and Fokine, as opposed to Fokine's Chopiniana, which was staged in Russia. So they actually are two distinct ballets, which are the same ballet, but distinct in certain steps, certain ways that it's stylized. But it's been interesting to work with the dancers, some of whom have never done romantic ballet before and are struggling a little bit with the style, because the romantic, well, it's similar in a way to Giselle and also not similar. It has a lot of the ballerina leaning over with her arms crossed and trying to get the dancers to find that style has been, it's not so easy. You know, if they're used to classical ballet, they want to stand up straight, they want to have these broad shoulders, and Les Sylphides, and even for the men who are doing the poet, are having a little bit of a harder time just sort of leaning over with their arms a little bit more relaxed and forward. So it's going to be really good for them. The other thing about this ballet is it's really hard. It's really challenging, and the solos are not easy. So trying to embody a new style as well as do solos that require tremendous stamina and also a kind of presence in the way that this ballet needs has been a journey for them so far. Yeah, Les Sylphides as opposed to La Sylphide.
Yes. Fokine was a product of the Imperial Ballet School, which is today's Vaganova Academy. And then he danced in the Imperial Ballet, which is today's Mariinsky Ballet. So he grew up doing all of the rigorous works of Petipa, but he wanted to break away from Petipa. And many consider Les Sylphides to be the first modern, truly abstract ballet. It didn't have a story per se in the way Petipa's ballets had stories. It was just an abstract evocation of a poet and his muses in a way. But the foundation of the choreography is all of the really difficult academic dancing of Petipa's time, just interpreted in this different way. Also speaking to our early years is the ballet Rodeo. Rodeo was not choreographed originally at Ballet Theater. It was choreographed on the Ballet Russe company that was touring America in the 40s and 50s. And in fact, our dearly beloved friend, Freddie Franklin, was the original champion roper in the original Ballet Russe production. So there's also a lovely connection to it from that. But Rodeo, as Susan, you were saying, was a work trying to imbue ballet with more of a sense of Americana, and that ballet could tell American stories, not just fairy tales or European stories.
Yes. And I think, people, when Agnes was thinking about it, people said this isn't going to work. And because it truly is Americana, and they could not see how you could marry, the cowboy swagger and Copland's music and all of those things in a story ballet for ballet dancers. And she, with her tremendous talent, just created this work that is so sensational. Even today, it is actually one of the ballets that's selling really, really well at our Coke season. But when she choreographed it, or when it premiered at the Met in ABT in 1942, it had over 20 curtain calls. That's how sensational it was. And Agnes herself was dancing the leading role as the cowgirl in the premiere, and also became a star overnight as a result. So this also sort of launched her career as a choreographer and somebody who gave ABT a distinctly American identity.
And it was the beginning of a really long relationship with Agnes, who went on to stage many other works with the company over the years.
Yes, I was just before she passed, I was fortunate enough to be able to be in the studio with her for Three Virgins and a Devil. And there was a big audition, and there was a woman, a dancer who was in the corps de ballet, who looked very similar to me. We were both sort of each other's doppelgangers. And Agnes, the way she would speak to us, she was, a lot of these folks were very pointed, didn't really have a lot of softness around their personalities, the way they spoke to dancers. So she used to tap her ring on the mirror behind her and to get everybody's attention. So you'd be hearing this big clank, clank, clank. And she actually kept saying, you ballet dancers, don't think that you have to work as hard in this ballet as you do in ballet. And, I'm just finding you very boring. And so one day I had had enough, and she once again berated us for not putting as much energy into it as we would in the ballet. And I put my hands on my hips and I said, "That's not true." And she was so shocked. And after that, she quite liked me. But she, with Terry Orr, who was staging it, and then he went on to become the artistic director of Pittsburgh Ballet Theater. He's now retired. But when she was knocking her ring on the mirror behind her, she would point to me and she would say to him, because she didn't know that how loud she spoke. She probably had hearing issues, and she said, "Is that the one I hate?" And so she and Terry would say, "No, Agnes, that's not the one you hate." So I actually ended up doing her role, which was the role of the prude, who at the end, oh, the pious one. I'm sorry, the pious one. So who at the end, she was trying to get the devil to go to church, and the devil kept resisting. And finally, she turned into this sort of monster and started chasing after the devil. And there was a little cave that said hell on stage, and he was running towards the cave, and she was going after him, and she's running, and he just disappears in the cave, captures the pious one. So it's a very funny ballet. Each of the virgins go into the cave. The devil gets them in there. But, that was my experience of Agnes. I know we have Amanda McCarrow, who also worked with Agnes. Amanda did the cowgirl. She did a couple of other roles with Agnes, and Susan Jones, who also did the cowgirl way back when as well. So we do have a nice lineage at ABT who worked directly with Agnes.
Of course, the other great choreographer of that era, the company's early years, was Anthony Tudor, who contributed so many important works to the company. But you've decided to bring back gala performance this year, which we really have not done in a very, very, very long time, over 20 years. And of course, it's an incredibly humorous work. And of course, you danced the ballet yourself, and you must have danced it under Mr. Tudor. So
I did.
I actually
quite a few works under Tudor, which was I danced Jardin aux Lilas, in both female lead roles, and I danced Dim Luster, and I danced the Italian ballerina in Gala. And I just wanted to bring this one back because it's not your typical signature Anthony Tudor, which would be Lilac Garden or Pillar of Fire, with, those themes of repression and longing and conflict. I just wanted to bring something more lighthearted. And Tudor was so focused on psychological depth and relationships and human emotion and human psychology and things like that. And so his interpretations of his caricature interpretations of the Russian ballerina who is sort of overly mugging the audience and smiling and trying to get everybody's attention with her technical feats. And then the Italian, which is really interesting because the Italian, when you think of an Italian temperament, usually they're very boisterous and they use their arms and, they're very passionate. But this one, the Italian is like a stone, and she doesn't move an eyelash, and her face is like stone. And she has this partner who is constantly trying to please her, and is trying to intercept her every move so that he's ready for her when she's ready. And but every once in a while, the character, the Italian, shows her true character. So she suddenly gets very passionate, or she can get a little bit irritated, and then go back to the stone. And I found it so fun to work on because you absolutely can't smile at all. And the dancers there, she has this very, very long walk across the stage. She walks in to the center of the stage, she turns to the audience, and then she walks very, very slowly forward and does this gigantic preparation to go up to point. And then she waits for the conductor, and the conductor doesn't get the cue. And so she, in an annoyed way, looks at the conductor and says, "Go." So, but this long walk across the stage is facing the wing, and the gentlemen in the company thought it would be hilarious if they could try to get me to laugh on my entrance. So they would do all sorts of things to try to distract me, like human pyramids, facing away from me, or things like that to get me to laugh. But I probably cracked a smile every once in a while on my entrance. Hopefully the audience didn't see it, but it's quite fun. And then the French is, very French, very flowery, full of joy and full of love. So it's a wonderful caricature of these three different personalities around this ballet. So I just thought it would be a lot of fun to see again.
It'll also be so interesting to see the current generation of dancers tackle such a comedic work. I couldn't think of anything else that's required them to really develop that kind of comedy. So yes, it'll be so interesting and fascinating to see how their modern sensibilities marry with this this work.
Yes. Well, I was fortunate enough to have time. Amanda McCarrow and John Gardner are staging it right now, and we're all scattered in other rooms where everybody is working all hours of the day. But I had an opening, and I went to the Italian, and Amanda was working with Chloe Missildine and Jared Curley. And so I got to impart some of the things that were given to me by Hugh Lang, who was Tudor's partner in life, and also had danced a lot of Tudor work. So I would say things to Chloe like, he offers your hand and you're about to do your famous balance. And for you, this is the thing that made you famous. So when he offers the hand, you can't, the choreography is that you just grab it, you just grab the hand. But I said, you can't just grab the hand, you have to almost look like you want to eat the hand with your eyes, so that so between all the stone, you also get these moments that you actually see the real character of the ballerina. But I also want to share a story because I could not figure out where Tudor got this idea of the Italian from. And one day, because again, I was thinking that Italians are very, passionate and all of those things. And one day, Carla Fracci came to ABT and she danced Lilac Garden. And she came off the stage. She's always very serene. Carla was always very serene. And they wrapped a big crocheted shawl, white, of course, over her white, beautiful Lilac Garden costume. And I was warming up backstage. And as Carla was walking by me, I said, "Oh, Carla," I said, "you were so beautiful. Thank you so much for such a beautiful performance." And she was in profile when I said that, and she stopped. And then she turned very slowly. And she looked at me and she said, "Thank you." And then she walked on. And I said, "That's it. That's the Italian." So that's where Tudor got that idea of that character. So, so he really, really studied the human, condition. Oh, thank you. Everybody likes my performance. The human condition, and studied people's characters at great length. And I was really lucky because when I was working with Tudor, he was much kinder, but he was very, very famous in the old days of just sort of ripping the dancer apart and making them do the same gesture over and over again. When I did Dim Luster with Kevin McKenzie, at one point, she gives the gentleman her scarf and he takes it to his nose and he smells it. And Tudor spent a half an hour on that gesture with Kevin. And so, but he was very, very kind, and very subdued when I got to work with him. So I was we'd all heard, these stories about Tudor, but I had a wonderful experience with him.
Well, another seminally important choreographer for the company has been Twyla Tharp, and we're dedicating an entire program to her work. Of course, her very first work, the groundbreaking Push Comes to Shove, which she choreographed for Mikhail Baryshnikov in 1976, was her first work for the company, and she's worked really pretty much consistently ever since then. Also on that program will be her very, very important and powerful 1983 work Bach Partita to the Bach solo violin Partita, which is an incredible work that we revived in 2013. And we've only done it once since then. So it will be wonderful to see that again. But there's another Twyla piece on the program that's going to be new to ABT. And you have a history with that piece. And that is a piece called Sextet. So maybe you can give us some of the background on Sextet and where it came from and how she developed it.
Yeah, she developed it on me, and my partner was Damien Wetzel. Then the other partnership was Guillaume Graffin with Kelly Cass from the New York City Ballet. And then the third couple was Keith what's Keith's last name?
Roberts.
Roberts, thank you, Keith Roberts, with Isabella, I believe Isabella Padovani. And so we developed it at City Center in the studios upstairs. And she had all sorts of music that she just used, like Stand By Me was one of the finale. She choreographed my pas de deux with Damien on a salsa group. So it was very full of salsa flavor. And then we did a showing at City Center in Studio 5. And that was the last I ever got to see of it. And it did go on, it did get performed. And she had, I believe, two other scores or one other score that wasn't working. And so this score is much more aligned with the music she originally choreographed on it. And so doing my role is Catherine Herlin, and I believe Aaron is doing the Damien, or was doing, let's see, it might have changed now. Maybe, I can't remember. Oh, Isak perhaps. Anyway, Catherine came up to me the other day and she said, "It's so hard and it's so fast. And how did you do that?" And I said, "Oh, Catherine, you can dance circles over all of us back then. So you just have to relax, But I'm really, really excited to see this work come to life on ABT stage. It's nice to have something new for ABT, but also from a choreographer that had done so much work on the company. So it'll be new for our audiences, it'll be new for our dancers, and very, very exciting I think on the program. And it's a nice mixture. We start with Sextet, the middle piece is Bach to the solo violin, and then we end with Push. And the reason why I brought Push was because it was the first ballet that I believe Twyla choreographed on ABT. And so there are a lot of, in this 85th anniversary, there are a lot of firsts in this, all the different programs of the season. There's firsts everywhere. And so I thought it was just very fitting. And we have the dancers to do it really, really well, and that have big personalities, and I think could really give it all the spark and personality and swagger it needs to be successful.
And also Twyla has been with us every day. She's been in the studio all day, every day. She's really committed herself to this program, and she's been very, very deeply involved in all of it, the casting, the rehearsals, and eventually bringing it to the stage. So even at her great age, she's still as energetic and committed as ever.
100%.
Well, there are a number of really important classical ballets in the season, among them Kingdom of the Shades from Ballet and also The Sleeping Beauty. We know the company has been through a few different productions of The Sleeping Beauty. The last full production being, as you mentioned, Alexei Ratmansky's reimagining of Petipa's original choreography from 1890. But we're going to see just a more standard sort of what people have become more used to in the late 20th century version of The Sleeping Beauty this time round.
Yes. I mean, it's hard to find a good closer. It's easy to find an opener. It's easy to find a middle piece. It is hard to find a really, really good closer. And I wanted something that really showed the company off classically. And Sleeping Beauty is sort of the pinnacle of classical ballet. Well, Shades too, but. And Alexei will be doing a revised version of his Sleeping Beauty full length for ABT in 2027, where he's going to shorten some of the tutus. He's going to raise the legs. He's going to raise the passés. He's going to put the chaîné on point. But until we can get him in the studio to revise all of those things, I thought that we could do the just sort of more standard modern day Sleeping Beauty with the short tutus, the high legs, and also because I've done, Aurora. I think the first time I did Aurora was in 1985 with Kenneth Macmillan's Sleeping Beauty, and then pardon me. Then I did. Maybe that was the only one I did, because after that it was Kevin's, but I had already retired. I came back as the queen for that one. And then I saw Alexei's. So ABT, as Clinton said, has gone through many iterations of the Sleeping Beauty, but my version will be the standard version, although with my own twist. I'm choreographing a brand new Jules. I wanted to give something for our men to sink their teeth into. And so the Jules is a pas de trois and not a pas de, sometimes it's a pas de quatre with just 4 women. Sometimes it's a pas de cinq with 4 women and a man. This will be a pas de trois with 1 man and 2 women. One will be silver, the other will be diamond. And I'm actually pretty pleased with it so far. So I'm excited to share that. Plus, I re-choreograph the Polonaise, the mazurka. I'll do all the staging around that. All the divertissement will be fairly standard, but with my own twist to it. And then the grand pas de deux will pretty much be the standard. So I'm looking forward to it. And when I was younger in the company, we danced the third act Sleeping Beauty on many occasions. And so I wanted to do that sort of in honor of that we used to do it a lot. And also just to have my own flavor in this 85th anniversary season. And I've been thinking a lot about the lineage of ABT. And I remember when I retired from dancing and I thought, oh, I'm going to do something completely different. I'm gonna be one of those people that has 9 lives. And I was excited about it. I wanted to do something adventurous. But one day, just sort of silently in my head, I sort of said to myself, you're so selfish because you danced with the legends of the previous generation, the Mikhail Baryshnikovs, the Makarovas, the Gudanovs, even the Twyla Tharps, all of those people I danced with and was influenced by and learned by and integrated into my own dancing. And the only way that ballet gets passed down is through people, from artist to artist, through the generations. And so after coming to that realization, I actually started teaching in the JKO and fell madly in love with teaching, and then started my own ballet school, started choreographing there. I had such a zigzag trajectory to come back to ABT as the artistic director. But just to say that the lineage of what I got to experience lives through me and lives through many of us as we pass on these ballets. And I think it's a great responsibility, but also a privilege.
Well, on that very beautiful note, we're actually have run out of time.
Oh, yay.
And I think that's just a beautiful summary to the whole season, really. And as Susan said, all of us have just been working all day long, every day in the studios to pass on all of our experiences to this new generation, which is so exciting and has so many incredible talents in it. And it will be a thrill for all of us to see them sinking their teeth into all of these really masterful works.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. So yeah, it's going to be a great season. And thank you,
so
everybody.
much.
Yeah, thank you for your interest and thank you for being with us.
Thank you for joining us, Quentin
many
and
times
Susan.
over the season.
Exactly.
We really appreciate all of your insights and all those wonderful stories. It's just so great to hear so much detail. Thank you.
Pleasure.
And let's see, we might be seeing some of you later this month at ABT and certainly in the theater. So we hope to see all of you often. Thank you everyone again for joining us. Bye-bye.